of Halacha Aleph, which is on Daf Lamed Aleph. Okay, we are a few lines before the end of Halacha Aleph, and we are at Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Oser. I'm going to take it from there. It should be the 2 dots. Do you have that? Okay. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda Oser, Rabbi Yehuda forbids. This means he forbids you to take meiser off stuff which is not in your possession tomorrow. In other words, make it tonight that tomorrow when I'm going to be at somebody else's house, I'm going to take trumas and meisers off their stuff. That he forbids it. My time, Rabbi Yehuda, why is Rabbi Yehuda forbid it? Because it says, "V'yeshon masel davar sheni b'shus," is allowed, the person allowed to make a condition something which is not in his jurisdiction. Because I'm making the condition now about something which is really not in my jurisdiction. Because when am I going to have contact with the food for the first time when it's placed on my plate before me as a guest tomorrow? So therefore, today I have no right to make any conditions over it. Okay. The person take trumus and maestros something which is on davar she'eino shelo rishuso. Can somebody make a condition rather on something which is not in his domain? Mod Rabbi Yehuda does concede sholach lokech makom shelokach mimakom holech shulholech v'lokech makom shelokach zeh masrot. If you have a question as to your host being meisering and whether he is meisering the stuff, so you're allowed to go and take from the same place he bought stuff and meiser on the stuff which was put before you. You're not allowed to make it tonight before it comes into your jurisdiction, but you're allowed to buy from the same place where he bought his stuff and allowed to use that to meiser the food which you're eating, because I assume that wherever he bought from that source is either always reliable or always unreliable, and therefore I can meiser from that source on the food which he's serving you. Rabbi Yochanan said, I'm sorry, I skipped. Now, the question is, how could a person be marfish on something which is not his? Now, this I think is a general question. Perhaps it might have been going back according to Rabbanan and saying that how do you are marfish on something which is not yours? Make a condition on something which is not yours tomorrow. But it could be going specifically on Rabbi Yehuda. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, the question is that it sounds like although you're not allowed to be mafresh from today on that which you're going to eat tomorrow, but you're allowed to be mafresh because it's not in your rishus, but you're allowed to now buy fruit, which will be in your domain now, and make the condition on that fruit for tomorrow. Let me make that more clear. It seems according to Rabbi Yehuda that although you cannot say now before Shabbos, tomorrow when I eat by my friend by Shabbos, I'm going to take off meisers there on the spot, because I'm making it tonight to do things which are not to do trumas and meisers with things which are not mine now. I have no jurisdiction over that. That's forbidden. But here we're saying that according to Rabbi Yehuda, though, you can go buy from the same supplier which supplied tomorrow's host and be marfish to trumas and meisers now from before Shabbos, not what you're going to eat tomorrow. So it says, why is it any better according to Rabbi Yehuda? Still according to Rabbi Yehuda, just like if you're making a condition on something which is not yours, you're being marfish trumas and meisers on something which is not yours. What right do you have to do that? So the Gemara is going to give an answer, and I think that the underlying this answer, though, even though the Gemara seems to be saying something else, is really the concept of hefker based in hefker. Chazal can give you the right to do things like this. They can say, what's the problem here? Jurisdiction, ownership? I don't own this, I'm not there, I don't have jurisdiction over it. So what? Chazal can change my jurisdiction, Chazal can give me rights over other things. Again, according to the principle of hefker based in hefker. So that's what the Gemara says. Rabbi Avo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan says, also so kamocher peiros tvun l'chavero. There are cases like this. If I sell by mistake tevel to my friend inadvertently, then I can take trumas and meisers off of it. How does that work? If I sell tevel to my friend, I run after him to try and fix it. I say, wait. I try and catch him. Lo matzu, if I can't find him. If I know that the fruit is still extant, in other words, he did not yet eat that fruit, meiser lamb, I can meiser on them. Even that's a chiddush, because they're no longer in my jurisdiction yet. I can still do that. Bimlav, and if not, obviously it's too late. Ain't no tzarich laser lane. I don't have to meiser on them because it's after the fact. Safek kayomin, safek ain't kayomin. If it's not clear if they are no extant anymore or not, maaser land, then I take meiser of them, korei shein l'maaser, and I designate the meiseros which are trumas meiser and truma gedola. I do that in my own fruit, but meiser rishon or meiser oni, which the guy could eat, I can designate that in his fruit, wherever he is, wherever that may be in the world. As long as it's designated, it's no longer considered to be tevel, and it's permitted to be eaten by zorim. So therefore, what I actually have set aside from my own fruit, corresponding to his fruit, is only that which is forbidden for him to eat. Truma gedola, meiser sheni outside Yerushalmi. Those are things I have to set aside. Nothing else. Be that as it may, what do I see here? That even after he bought the tevel from me, I still have a tool by which I can set aside the trumas and meiser from my stuff. How could that be? L'chara, my stuff, I can't be mafresh on him. And the Gemara, it's clearly, again, as I say, underlying this Gemara is the fundamental concept of hefker base, and hefker basically giving me the right to do things in other people's property and have jurisdiction over it. Okay?
It's a different situation, though. Here it was your tevel and you sold it.
That's true, but now it's no longer mine. You're right, it is different. And Chazal...
In the case, you're buying tevel.
Right, no, there are differences here, but the point is that Chazal have the right to interfere and give me jurisdiction over something which isn't really mine. Okay? There has to be a reason for them to do so, but they can do so if they so please. Okay, halacha base. Mozgul hakos. Now, they poured for him a cup. The Gemara is going to amend the price a little bit, but they poured him a cup on Shabbos. Before Shabbos, Omer, you must say, Mashani Osilo Shar B'Shuli Hakos, that you're going to leave at the beginning of the cup, again, going to house where they're choshen and trumas and meiseros, so he says, that which I leave on the bottom of the cup, meiser, that 1% will be meiser, the shar meiser somuchon, the other meiser will be adjacent to it. Zesh was easy meiser, that 1% which I left on the cup should be also trumas meiser, should come trumas meiser on the other meiser which I've already consumed. Meiser sheni befiv, let the meiser sheni be at the mouth of the cup, and let that be redeemed on money. Now this is good. The Gemara is going to discuss this case. It says more. First of all, kini masnisin. This is a way to understand our Mishnah. Le'inyam mezikas hakos. Not that they already poured him the cup, because when is he making the condition? From before Shabbos. When are they pouring the cup on Shabbos? So it means vis-a-vis pouring a cup. This is the way to handle the situation. Mana kayami. Now it says more. There's a whole brera problem here. What are we talking about here? How it has to work retroactively, yet how does it work retroactively? If he says before he drinks, let that which remains in the bottom become trumas meiser, that's bad. Because then mashke murafu, then already the trumas meiser, if it's designated before he drinks, beverage circulating in the cup, so it's going to be all over the place. It's to be forbidden for him to drink the cup altogether. If he says it after he drinks, retroactively he drank tevel, because while he was drinking there was no designated meiser yet. By food you could say that which I leave on my plate is going to be meiser, because food is stationary. What was left on my plate at the end was always in that location on the plate. But by drink you can't say that it's constantly circulating in the cup. So therefore, how are you going to leave something at the end that should become tevel that should become the trumas meiser retroactively? What are we talking about? Boy, when a person says mikvar, it should work retroactively after I finish drinking. So it's breira. After I'm finished, whatever's left there retroactively should be hoover that is what I meant to leave. It should be retroactively clarified. That's what I meant to be the trumas meiser. Okay? Now ask Mar a technical muktzah problem, Shabbos problem. For learning some metalto truma tmei b'Shabbos. Wait a minute. What's left in the cup after you're finished? Truma smeiser, right? It's tamei. You're eating by namoritz. It's Shabbos. It's not suitable for anything. What should be the halacha of this cup? Muktzah. How can you move the cup? Okay. Amar Rabbi Shimon says mishayar koshu chulin. You leave a little bit of chulin over, so you leave a little bit more than 1%. So it's a trumas meiser plus a little bit more. Kaida tanina tamon, like we learned in other places, metalli and truma tmei imachulin. If you have chulin, you can carry truma tmei with it. It's kind of like schlepped along. So that's more of a low damia. There's no comparison. Tama tmei Torah. In that case over there, by the true truma, you're schlepping a little bit of truma tmei for the purpose of schlepping the main body of chulin. But here you're going to schlep a little bit of chulin, the tzorach tmei. Now it's just to allow you to carry the truma tmei. You're going to tack on to a little chulin. That doesn't work. You don't, because you're trying to make a tafel out of an ikar, and ikar out of a tafel. Trying to make that which is primary, secondary, which is secondary, primary. This can't be, right? If chulin is primary, I can schlep along a little bit of truma tmei with it. But if truma tmei is primary, I can't schlep along a little bit of chulin with it. So why does this work? So it's more Rabbi Yossi Bey Rabbi Boon. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Boon said, when I designate it, I say I only want it to be kaddish as I'm pouring it out of the cup. In other words, when I'm cleaning out the cup as I'm pouring it out, that's when it becomes truma. So that way I'm allowed to carry the cup when it still has a little bit of juice, liquid in it, and only becomes truma when I'm actually pouring it out. Okay? Says the Gemara, we learned over there. Okay, we're going to learn this later. This is later on in the parak. We'll get to it in a few more minutes. Tamati, you learned over there. If you buy wine from Samaritans, so Ratani, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon also, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon say you can't take Trumas of Maasros off of it on Shabbos. Why? Because Shemati Bokan Nod. Maybe there's a famous case, because like we're getting right. So maybe the bottle will burst, and down will come truma and all. Right? You're not going to be able to leave. You won't have any truma left retroactively. So we're afraid of Shemati Bokan Nod, because maybe the bottle will break before you have any truma left over. And he says that it's falling my friend retroactively. You're drinking devil. So it's hard to mastisa. Lok Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimoni, our Mishnah says you can leave a little bit in a glass. L'chora, it's not like Rabbi Yossi, nor like Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yaakov, who say they were afraid that the bottle will break. Rabbi Yaakov, they didn't know. We're afraid a bottle will break over time. But here the cup is immediate. Is that clear? The bottle is going to be left for some time. Maybe you're going to, maybe in the meantime it'll break. But here the cup, immediately after you finish drinking, you're going to pour off the rest, right? Which is going to be the truma's mites, a little bit of chulin. So therefore, there's no time lapse, which will generate a fear of Shemati Bokan Nod. Maybe the bottle will break. Yeah, the Gemara is going to discuss it later on. The Gemara will discuss it.
Where's going to pour this?
That's a good question. I guess there's some sewer. Because I just can't pour it on the ground. There must be some place to it. Yeah.
And is it from the Baal-Bais?
So repetitiously. Yes. Okay? You have a worker who's working for a Baal bus. And he doesn't believe the Baal bus is feeding him stuff which is meiser. Noito Kroger Sachas, he takes one kernel, Voimer, or one fig, whatever it is. It says Zu, this one with Teisha Bos Acharea, and the 9 subsequent ones are Suyos Meiser Al Tishim Shani Yochel Shmi Meiser on 90 which are going to eat. Vizu Asuyos Trumas Meiser Leim, and this one which I'm holding should be the Trumas Meiser. Umeiser Shei Rachos Let Meiser Shei be the last one's going to eat. Muchula Mos let the Meiser Shei be redeemed on money. The Choser Krogeres Achos, and since he took one kernel or one grape or whatever it is to be his trumas meiser, So corresponding that he should eat one less Trumas Meiser from the Baal Bus. In order not to transgress what prohibition? That's a trick question. In order not to transgress what prohibition? Why should he eat one less? Theft! Because he took one kernel and made a Trumas Meiser. What's the Baal Bus giving him food for? To eat. So this one, he has to eat one less corresponding to the one he set aside as Trumas Meiser. Is that not clear? Otherwise it's thievery? Yes? Okay? Says Gemara, he shouldn't refrain from eating an extra kernel or grape or whatever it is. Because he needs the energy, he needs the strength to work for the Baal Bayis. So therefore he should eat as much as he needs to eat regardless. Rabbi Yossi, another reason why shouldn't he leave one and set one aside, not eat one? Tonight, basically, because the Basin allowed him to take off Trumas Meiseris from his food, which he gets as part and parcel of his labor, and therefore Basin allowed him to eat the food, to eat even corresponding to when he took off his Trumas Meiser. Rabbi Lezer B'Shem Rabbi Yoshia said, "Also, it should be here. Also kipoel she'eno mami l'Baal Bayis. They made him like a worker who doesn't believe to Baal Bayis." Now, question is, who's him? So he points out his type of son. This Gemara has nothing to do with our Gemara. Oh, it does. But it's really because we're first to Gemara and Trumas. The Gemara and Trumas says that if you have 10 bushels in your silo, so you can give one bushel to a Levi and one bushel to the Ani, and say the next 8, whatever the next 8 I choose are, were fixed by these 2. You don't have to have all 10 in front of you while you're fixing. That, Rabbi Yosh's name, Rabbi Yosh, is exactly like our Mishnah. The Pohel can take off one kernel and say the next 9 will be Meiser, and they should work for the subsequent 90, whatever the case may be, right? So the parallel is obvious, right? That case over there, where you gave one to a Levi and one to an Ani, is a very and then you can eat the next 8, is very parallel to our case as well. Says more Pshita, isn't that obvious? What's the Chiddush? Obviously there's a similarity. Says Gemara, Hadamil, so this is the Chiddush. Nisrufu aperos. What happens if over there, if the fruit, in other words, the last 8 bushels get burnt? Ha truma betibula. Then the truma which I took off corresponding to that, corresponding to the well, truth is that okay, it can be applied to our case as well. If I took off one, and then another, one for Meiser Rishon, and then another for Meiser Ani, and there are 8 left. If those 8 get burnt, what's the status of my first 2? They're tevel. It never took effect. Truma, I said, let it be Truma Samaisis on the next 8. There was never next 8. My silo burned down. My barn burned down. So there was never next 8. That's what it says Gemara. Nisafu haperos truma v'tibula. The truma gets burned, the truma remains tevel. What about Nisafu truma? What about the other case? The truma got burnt. The silo is extant. The truma gets burnt. That case, that's okay. Because when I eat the fruit from the silo, kadosh truma l'mafreya. The truma is kadosh retroactively. So if the truma did work in that case, it's truma which was separated, got burnt afterwards. Whereas if the bushels upon which I'm doing the separation was in a silo got burned, so the truma never took effect. In that case, the truma remains tevel. Okay, so it's not reflexive here. Each case is different. Okay, now let's get back to our Mishnah. Why does the guy in our Mishnah have to not refrain from eating one kernel, one cluster, whatever? Because who might be Trumas Meiser, because he took one off, it's Trumas Meiser. Tani, we learned, however, that again, as Rav Shimon Gamliel says, you shouldn't save it, you shouldn't save up, because you're going to cause the Baal Boss a loss, because he wants somebody with full energy. Along those lines, we learned the following principles. Very famous Gemara. Lo yachrish adam b'parosa b'layla, a person should not plow with his cow at night. He's going to be home and rent it out the next day. Why? Because, why not? Right, it's not a full cow. Right, it's not a fully functioning cow. Lo yaseb soch shelo b'layla, he shouldn't work in his own property at night. And hire himself out as a worker the next day. Lo yariv atzmo, a person who's a worker should not starve himself. Lo yisari until nor should he afflict himself. Because he's diminishing the work capacity for the Baal Bus. Now look at this, Rabbi Say. Rabbi Yochanan Azal Charas. Rabbi Yochanan went to a certain place. Ashkach Safra Ainus. He found that the Rebbe in the yeshiva was weak. Amar Lewis, he said, Ma okay? Well, why are you so weak? Amar Lei, so he said, I didn't get my paycheck this month. No, that's not what it says here. Amar Lei, Tzayim, I'm fasting. Want to be holy, I'm fasting. Amar Lei, so he said, Asulach, you're forbidden to fast. Umay malachlu shabasar v'dam. If when you're working for a human being, at Omar you say, also it's forbidden to fast, nor because you're going to, even to not eat that one kernel or cluster, it says in a Mishnah, because you're going to diminish your energy for the Balabas. When you're doing the work of God, a Rebbe in the yeshiva, alachas kama v'kama, but should never refrain from having coffee.
How do you explain all the Kabbalahs who did that?
He didn't teach.
It was like this. You go like this.
Yeah.
Maybe originally
They didn't teach, so they didn't know Yerushalmi. Okay? Rav Chiv Rashi B'Shem Rav said, tonight based in Shetei Trumas Meiser Michel. Now here is a typo. It's according to the Gra. It's according to the Rashi. Excuse me. Tonight based in Shetei Trumas Meiser Shel Baal Bais. In other words, he's going like the last sheet in our Mishnah that the worker does eat. Said Rabbi Yossi because tonight based in that it's tough on the employer. The employer has to provide him with wherewithal to take off Trumas Meiser. Meiser Sheni, yet on the other hand, Meiser Sheni shall Poel. The Poel has to designate Meiser Sheni and redeem it on his own pruta. There, it's not the Baal Bais' responsibility. Okay? Halokeh, new case. So in this case, we just had a few minutes ago. Halokeh Halokech yaim miben akutim. Somebody buys wine from the Samaritans and deserves Shabbos at twilight. Does that type the mice before Shabbos? On Shabbos, on Shabbos. No. Then on Erev Shabbos at twilight. Again, it's as the sun is setting. Omer says Shnei lugim shani asi lahafrish. The two lugas are going to separate. Now here it's after Shabbos. Harei and Truma, they should be Truma. Vasora and 10 others are Meiser. The Tisha Meiser Sheni, 9 should be Meiser Sheni. Umecha, and he can redeem the Meiser Sheni, Ushreiseh, and he drinks it. Tani, we learn concerning this. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Osrim. Why? Shema Tibaka, no, because maybe the bottle will burst by Motzei Shabbos. Retroactively, you were drinking tevel. Says more lo ketame adain tamid Rabbi Yossi. Truth is, we're lying to you. The logic Rabbi Yossi is not because he's afraid the bottle will burst. Rather, what's the logic Rabbi Yossi forbids his practice? So here the Gra comes in and says the next two words should be shehei misayim. Truma must be designated specifically. You can't just say whatever I leave over will be truma. It's got to be designated. It has to be selected, and here it didn't select it. Okay, so just say whatever I leave over, that will be the truma. That's not sufficient. right? Doesn't meet the standard.
What about all the cases we had on?
He would argue in all of them.
Potential is killed.
Rabbi Yossi would argue in all of them.
They brought it down now, it should have been brought earlier.
He
Granted.
potentially could.
Okay, but he seemingly argue in all of
He
them.
was talking if he
Uh,
thought, but would have known better.
Now then, my time of Rabbi Shimon. What's the logic of Rabbi Shimon? Says the Gemara, Shema Yishkach v'Yishtes Tashar. Truth is, he's not afraid that the bow will burst. That's a remote chashash. What he's afraid of is that maybe you'll forget and drink that which you're supposed to set aside. Same idea, right? Says the Gemara, the Tana, as we learned, Meiser Shein shebechevet zeh mechul al sol shebekiz zeh. If I said the Meiser Shein in this fruit should be redeemed on the seller. I didn't specify which seller. I said a seller in my wallet. Chila. That works according to Tanakama. Rabbi Yossi obviously, however, says so. Lo chilel. It doesn't work. Why is that? Because I need to designate which pruta I'm using to be part of this Meiser Sheni. I need to designate which fruit I'm making truma. Now here the Tosefta has a different gear. So the next words, Moder Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi concedes. Shimon al Seli Yeshon. I've identified the seller. I said I'm the old seller. Vadina Dino Yoshanar. I'm the old dinar. The Shechil that then it's redeemed because then I specified it. I identified it by some feature. Okay. Moder Chachon Rabbi Yossi. Vice versa. Chachon concede to Rabbi Yossi. Shimon al Sela. I want to redeem my Meiser Sheni on a seller Shatomi Abonai, which I'll take from my kids tomorrow. Valdina Shatomi Abonai, or a dinner I'll take from my kids tomorrow. Shalochil, that doesn't work. Why? Even according to Rabbanu, it doesn't have to be Mesuyim, it means it still has to be Biyodi. I have to have the right to whatever coin I'm using to Meiser, to Michal or Meiser on. And here, since I don't, therefore it doesn't work. Okay? Tamon Tzanina, we learned over there. Somebody leaves fruit as a resource. He's going to be marvish shumas and meises from that fruit on all of his chulin, on all of his grain as he grows it, or as he harvests it, I should say. Leos marvish alain, etc. Meiser sheni, or he leaves coins. To be to be Michal Meiser Sheni, right? So, or actually, I read it as a lead on, but it's a statement. You're allowed to do this. Leave fruit in order to make it Meiser, and leave coins in order to redeem Meiser Sheni. Now it says Gemara. That which you're allowed to do at the low Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Shimon shouldn't be like Rabbi Yossi, like Rabbi Shimon, like Rabbi Yossi has to be Dover Mesuyim. We're not specifying which of these coins will be the one on which the pigeon takes place. And like Rabbi Shimon, let's be afraid you're going to lose the coins, or spend them, or eat the crop that's heavily designated to be truma. Says Moram Rabbi Zerah says no works. Even with the Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon. What's the difference? Tamon lemafron niskalkulu. There's a lumdish difference. It's not so much a practical one. That's why it's a little bit hard to explain. By the case of the wine in the jug, if you forgot and drank it, everything you did till now is bad. Everything. Because everything was contingent on that last moment when the truma would take effect. However, if you set aside money to be Mechala Meiser Sheni, and fruit to be take of Trumas Meisers, so everything you did until the last moment, just before it got lost or destroyed or damaged, was a valid transaction because there's no retroactivity here. So therefore, not as machmir. Where everything is contingent on the last moment, has to work retroactively. Says Rabbi Yehuda, I'm afraid. Says Rabbi Shimon, I'm afraid. Says Rabbi Yossi, I'm afraid. But where each thing in turn works, right? As I get where here's fruit to be mavish trumas and meisus on this fruit, and as I get each piece of fruit, it works. There's no retroactivity. Everything takes place on the spot. And also the other case, I have money. sitting here, and as I'm being Machal Meiser Sheni, each and every time I do it, it works. It doesn't have to be retroactive. There Chazal were Machmir, they allowed you to do that.
Again, it's because the wine is liquid and it mixes up. When you say retroactivity, you mean it also
But that's not what I'm afraid of, according to Rabbi Yehuda. You say whatever's left at the end, that'll be the Trumas Samaisis retroactively. We're afraid of is that you won't leave anything at the end to be retroactive.
And what's guaranteed that the solid food?
Nothing guarantees that it'll be there in the future. But right now, there's no retroactivity to be worried about. So the moment it works, it works. After that moment, it no longer works anymore. But anything I already did was valid. Let's say the fruit got lost. After I'd done 50% of it, used 50% of it as truma. But 50% I did worked. So their Chazal were not as stringent. Again, the only stringent where retroactivity kicks in, not where it's a straightforward type of transaction. Okay? Says more further. Tamati, we learned over there. Pruta shalakta shenova l'tochakis. A pruta of hektish which fell into a wallet. There's really a case in Mila. We just had at least the parallel case in Mila and the Bavli. A pruta shalakta shenova l'tochakis. A pruta of hektish fell into a wallet. And there are 100 coins and you don't know which one is hektish. Oh, you're a real idiot. Shama pruta bekis hektish. She said, oh, I want one pruta in my wallet to be hektish. You know which one? No. You're an idiot, right? So what's the case? What's the look in this case? Tana, we learned al Rishon Amal, the first coin he uses. It's Mila b'sofek. Falashnia, not literally the second one, unless there are two. But on the later ones, eventually you get to create Mila b'vadai. Rabbi Akiva, because eventually you're going to be using the coin which you made hektish. Chom Rami and Chom say no. Al kulon, it should be lo moal. Since you didn't designate which coin, you don't know which coin, so therefore you could say it's the last coin. Because each coin taken before that is what? What do we say about each coin taken before that? You asked me about something similar the other day. What? Close? No. What makes it mutter? Each of the first 99 coins. Kol the parish, miruba parish. That's right. Each one as I take it comes from the rove. That's correct. Okay? So says the Gemara, therefore, al kulon lomwa. The first 99 moil, because called the parish, miruba parish, they come from chulin. Well, achroina moil bevada. Only in the last one you definitely moil. Rabbi Yehuda said, avoid the Rabbi Masni, the father Rabbi Masni said, Hadar that's only true Kshuel Eser, when there was a rove, right? When there were 10 to start with. Truth is, it could have even said how many? 3, not 2. Avalima Yushtaim, then you can't say called the parish, right? That's right, because each one, the first one's not coming from a rove, it's coming from a 2, 50-50. In that case, the first one, there's Mila B'Safik. On the second one, there's Mila B'Vatai. Rabbi Shimon Lakish Boy Bokum Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish asks from Rabbi Yochanan, Ma bin Omer B'Kis. What's the truth when he says a pruta in the kis should be akdesh? Ma bin Omer Minakis. When he says a sub from the kis should be hektish. Now the difference is in Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says if I said a pruta in the kis should be hektish, and the first one I take might well be hektish, and it's a very least a suffix mila, right? Whereas if I say one minakis, right, one not in the kis, but rather something from the kiss, so then I only have to be choshesh for the last one, not for the first 99. What's the difference between the two cases here? Now, the Gemara's gears here is messed up. Here should be the words later on, about a line later, where it says, Kan Toli Bafrosha. Do you see those words, Kan Toli Bafrosha? Those words says the Gra should be right here. And that makes sense, because we're quite, the dichotomy is like this. When I say pruta bakis, I no longer have the right to intervene. Whichever one it is. I can't designate it. So therefore, in each one it's a suffix milakon Rabbi Akiva. But when I say pruta minakis, one that I take out of the bag, then it's totally in my what? In my afrosha. So I say, what is the only, which one am I moil in? The last one, or whichever one previously I designated as being the one of Ekdish. There, my intervention has ramification. Says more further, Rabbi Shimon Lakish Soimer, Afilu Hotzies Kol Akis Lo Yimo. He asked the kasha, really. It's really a kasha. Like Rabbi Yosef said, in order to make truma, what does it have to be? A mesuyam, right? So let's say something by hekdesh. In order to make hekdesh, what should have to be? Mesuyam. One which is designated. And since you didn't designate it, even if you spent the entire wallet, it shouldn't be me'ila, because there's no one which is designated specifically to be the coin of hekdesh, right? Kimad the Tamar, just like you said over here, back here in our case, when Mafreo Tevel Shosa, that retroactively, if you forgot to separate one, if you got to leave wine at the end, so they say retroactively, you drank Tevel. It's not that you drank Truma. You drank Tevel. Why say you drank Tevel? Because there was no Dover Mesuyam. You never were assignment. Hi, you had the best intentions in the world to leave one over as Truma. So let's say it's not you drank Tevel. You drank 99 parts Chulin and 1 part Truma. We say no. Since it didn't specify any, you drank Tevel. So let's say the same thing here. Varmer of Hacha. So let's say the same thing here as well. Limafreo. Since it's not Mesuyam, Chulin Hotzi. You weren't Moel, because none of them was designated Hekdesh. It can only be designated just Dover Mesuyam. So now we skip the next 3 words, because you already put them in earlier. Rabbi Yonah said, no. Kan v'kan, it should be Ein Toli Ba'afrosha. Not Toli, but Kan v'kan Ein Toli Ba'afrosha. That's the Gra. In both localities, it's not contingent on Afrosha. Why? Nasa, because over there, Nasa koimral yetze akisa zem midei pruta hekdesh. It's not that you said the one I take out, I want to be hekdesh. You said this wallet should not be exempt from at least 1 pruta of hekdesh. So therefore, which one becomes the hekdesh? What? The last one. Regardless if I designate it or not, because of my language. I said this wallet should not be exempt without at least 1 pruta becoming hekdesh.
Why is it the first one?
What?
Why?
Because at least 1 pruta, which is at least 1 pruta? At least the last one. At least means the last. Last is least. Right? Okay? Unless you say last but not least, last is least, right? But of course over here, by Truma you didn't say that. By Truma you didn't say, let this cup, let this bottle not be exempt without the last one being Truma. What'd you say over in our case? The last one which I leave over, the last bit I leave should be Truma. Well, you forgot to leave anything. So therefore, the bottom line is, the whole thing is what? Tevel, right? There was never any Truma. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Rabbi Shimon Lakish seems to contradict himself.
That's really us.
Literally to exchange shittahs means to extend, to contradict. Talmud Omer, Moli b'prutos v'cheshbon shlosha lugin. This is an interesting case. I never saw this case before. Nisuch Hamayim. What's a shiur for Nisuch Hamayim? How would you know? 3 lugin. Then shiur mentioned here. 3. I wouldn't remember either. But it is a Gemara Tzukah. 3 lugin is a shiur for Nisuch Hamayim. So when they used to fill up the keli for Nisuch Hamayim, however, they used to fill up a huge vessel. Many lugin. Says Rish Lakish, the last 3 lugin in the vessel when you're pouring out those are the ones in which there's Mila. As long as they're worth a Shava Pruta, because Mila is measured by Shava Pruta. That's a contradiction to Sheet over here. Because here he's saying there's no self-designation, there's only active designation, there's no automatic designation, it's only active designation, right? He's saying I have to designate a Pruta in order for it to be active. Yet there he assumes that there's self-designation. The last three lugin in the vessel, after all of us poured off, are considered to be the Nisuch HaMayim. And here he says differently, says the Mora, a very obvious answer. Once he needed the answer for Rabbi Yoina, Chazer Apashi went back and changed his mind by Nisuch HaMayim. Because Rabbi Yoina said, over here too, what's his mindset? He's saying this should not be exempt from Hekdesh. This well should not be exempt for at least one prut of Hekdesh. So the last prut is Hekdesh. There too, his meaning was this when he pulled the water out of the well, out of the fountain, in order to make Nisuch HaMayim. His intent was at least the three lug at the end should be the Nisuch HaMayim. And they're assuming they're worth a pruta. You're moil in that. Amr Yitzchak Bar Lazar said, Adam Oimei Erev Shabbos, persons could stand on Erev Shabbos, Voimer, and he says, oh wait, there's a gears to change here. No, not yet. Voimer says, Hareza Truma. L'moch. This, you can say, this is the Truma tomorrow. However, Ve'ein Adam Oimei, it should be B'Shabbos. Voimer Hareza Truma L'mochar. In other words, I can stand Erev Shabbos and say, this is a condition which we had before. I can stand Erev Shabbos and say, let this be Truma tomorrow. Like the previous Mishnayos, right? But I can't stand on Shabbos and say, let whatever I take off Motzei Shabbos be Truma. Because what does that look like? It's like Mechli, not prepared. It's like Mechli K'Misakin, because my statement in and of itself is what looks like it's Misakin on Shabbos, right? I'm saying whatever I leave over till tomorrow, that should be Truma. That looks like I'm being Misakin on Shabbos, right? I'm Rabbi Yossi Bey Rabbi Boon. Ein Odam Oimim Erev Shabbos. You're not even allowed to stand on Erev Shabbos. Voima raise a Truma L'mochar and say it is Truma tomorrow. Now, just a minute. Our Mishnah, the immediate preceding one with Lokei Chaim B'Rakutim, you're standing Bein Hashmoshos. And he's saying whatever I take off Motzei Shabbos should be Truma. That's okay. And the previous Mishnah are talking about where you're standing on Erev Shabbos. I'd say whatever I take off at Shabbos. He said that's okay too. So it's the start of the process from before. What's also to stand on Shabbos and say whatever I take off tomorrow? That's no good. Hi, you only take it off tomorrow? No, but you made the statement today. It's Mechsei K'Misakin on Shabbos. Looks like fixing on Shabbos. Right? So far, so good. Masni, so Pliga, Rabbi Yosef comes along and says, Ain't it the Moimer of Shabbos, so Moimer raise the Truma L'mochar. Now to stand Erev Shabbos and say, let this be Truma tomorrow. Hey! Masni, so Pliga, Rabbi Yosef Bar Boon. The following Mishnah argues Rabbi Yosef Bar Boon. What does this Mishnah say? That lugging chain lugging Shein Tful. You had a pitcher which was tummy, and it's not obviously not earthenware because it would be titled. It's metal or glass. So you titled the keli. The keli is now Tful. You can't set aside Friday. Let me make this clear. Friday after you title the keli. When is the keli going to become Torah? Tonight. After Shkia. I don't know either. As I state, you know what? Pai says explicitly in the Chumash, and we just never paid attention. Okay? I assume it's somewhere. Probably Vayikra somewhere. In any event, so the thing is like this. You have in that Keli Tevel. All right, you want to maybe be retirement, but you can't take off the Truma today. Why? Because Tful Yom makes Truma possible. So you can't set aside the Truma today. Is that clear? Today you can't set aside. So when only can it become truma? Tonight. So what do? Says the Mishnah. You filled it up from the jug, stuff which is tevel for meiser. In other words, meiser has been taken off. Imamar raised trumas meiser. Now here the gears is messed up. Im Omar mi raise a trumas meiser. We said let be trumas meiser. Mishetech shach. After nightfall, raise a truma works. Okay, so far so good. It works. So im Omar raise a eruv. However, the words so there are a few words taken out and put in here. Okay. Okay, so Imar raised the Trumas Meiser, Mishatech Shach tonight. I raised the Truma. It's Truma. And now the next word is taken out. Im Amar Reizu Eruv. If he says it's supposed to be Eruv, Lo Amar Klum. The same case. He has Tevel. When's it going to become good? Not now, because it's Tvul Yom. When's it going to become edible? Only after nightfall, right? When does Eruv Tavshilin, Eruv Tchumen, Eruv Chatzeros have to take effect before Shabbos at Bein Hashmoshos at best, right? Bein Hashmoshos is not yet edible. So therefore, can this food be Eruv? No, because it's going to be Eruv if it's edible Bein Hashmoshos. And this food is not going to be edible Bein Hashmoshos, because when does the Truma go into effect to make it edible? Only tonight, after Chashecha, after Tzeitzah Kochov, which is the time when it's being Tvul Yom. So it's a kasha. Because here it says you're allowed to make Truma on Shabbos. You can stand Friday afternoon, make it tonight, and have the Truma devolve on Shabbos. That's what it says here. No. But the first case, the Erev Tavshilin case is built on the first case in the Mishnah. First case in the Mishnah is I have Tevel, I need to take off Truma, but I can't take off Truma today because it's Tvulya. So I want the Truma to take effect when? Tonight, when it's already Shabbos. So I see I could put such a mechanism into play. Yet he said before you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to stand there of Shabbos and say, let it become Truma on Shabbos. So he's contradicted from this Mishnah. Says Mara Pasar Law. What's Rabbi Yisrael Rabbi going to say? Lishoavar, which is the same thing, same b'di'evet. The Chatchila you're not allowed to do that. You can't say Friday afternoon, let it be Truma on Shabbos. B'di'evet, if you did it, it works. V'atani Rabbi Chia Omer, and we have Brisa, which in fact says that Rabbi Chia said, Islach l'she'emar, Islach l'meimar l'she'avar. No, I'm sorry, I'm misreading that. I apologize. V'atani, I didn't we learn the Brisa says Rabbi Chia Omer. Chia says you can do this. This Brisa which says that you can use the Chavis Tvul Yom and say let it take effect on Friday night. Rabbi Chia Omer, you should do this. Yitzchak l'shema, you can say b'di'evet. It sounds like Rabbi Chia's saying go ahead and do this, which means the Chatchila. Says more of a chazah about Rabbi Yosef Rabun Reneg. Which Rabbi Yosef Rabun said you're right. I see from the fact that Rabbi Chia gives me this as an eitzah of what to do, so it's quite clear that I'm allowed to go to Chatchila and say on Erev Shabbos let it become Truma on Shabbos. Okay? We'll do one more halach and then we'll stop. You had figs of tevel in your house. You're in the Beis HaMedrash. Over southern in the field. And you're afraid people at your house are going to eat this tevel. So what do? Omer says, 2 figs I will take off eventually. Harei truma, they should be truma. V'asora meiser, 10 will be meiser. V'tisha meiser sheni, and 9 of them meiser sheni. So in other words, even though you're not home, and normally you're not allowed to take trumas of meiseris, without being in the same place and taking them off. So here you're afraid that they're going to eat. They're going to eat tevel. So here you are going to use breira and say whatever I take off later on will be retroactively clarified to be the Trumas Amaisis, whatever my Bnei Bayis eats. Okay? So this is also about Erev Shabbos. You're afraid you won't be able to get home in time before they start eating, and therefore you're allowed to make this tonight. Okay? Says the Gemara, Ayu Demai, if they're not Tevel but Demai, same idea. It says, so you're going to set aside tomorrow, Hareu Meiser, that will be Meiser, Ushar Meiser, Samachlo, and the rest of the Meiser should be next to it. Zesho Sisi Meiser, the 1/100th I made Meiser to begin with. Also Trumas Meiser, it should be Trumas Meiser Olav, and the rest of the Meiser, Meiser Sheni, Bitsono Dromo, and Meiser Sheni should be on the north or on the south, Umchlumo, so let it be redeemed on the money. Okay, it says more, my Kedun, what are we talking about? In our Mishnah, Mikvar la Shafi Shena, that's work retroactively. Mikvar means in the past when I do take it off. That's like Lemafreya, right? When I take it off, it should work retroactively from the time I made my statement. Hagatz and let's take this. Let's Hagatz literally means let's attain further. But what it means in context is let's play let's take this case further. What? Yeah, let's think this over. Let's expand on this case. Shohaiso Truma Tmeya. This is a problem. Let's say this is Tevel, which is Tommy. How is he going to do this? Right? So when he takes it off, what's it going to become? Truma Tmeya. What's the problem with Truma Tmeya? It's Shabbos. It's Muktzah. How are you going to move it? How are you going to take 2 figs and make them Truma? They're Muktzah. Right? So it says the Gemara, I got so Shreisa Truma Tmeya Mikfar. So there he has to say Mikfar L'Kshani Cheno. Then what does he say? Let it be Truma retroactively, but not for the time I pick it up, because it's Truma Tmeya, it's Muktzah. So rather from the time I put it down. So in other words, he says later on tonight they're going to take 2 figs, but they shouldn't become Truma then, but rather when should they become Truma? When I put them down somewhere else where I no longer have to carry them. Okay, that avoids the problem of Muktzah. It's when I put them in the corner. Tani, we learn if you are carrying, you're allowed to carry Truma Tmeya and Truma Torah if it's together with other fruit. This is like we had earlier today. When the Truma is together with other fruit, that's okay. Why? Because they're tofel then to the fruit. Since you carry the fruit, you can carry the Truma Tmeya piggybacked on top of it. Amar Bizir said, Hada Amara. This teaches us that which it said previously, that when you take deal with Tmeya, you say, when I put it down, it should become Truma. So this teaches us, Tevel Sheyesh of Tanai, that the Tevel which you have at Tanai, Mutu carry that. So you say that it teaches us that since we had the Tanai from Erev Shabbos, which allows you to take off the Truma Samaiser and Shabbos, it's already suitable for Shabbos and therefore doesn't have the full status of Tevel. It's not Muktzah, you're allowed to carry it. Okay? The Tanai gives you the permission to carry it. Now, a new thing. Let's say you have a case where you didn't make the Tanai the proper way, and so you can't take off the Truma Tmeya. You can't pick it up because then it's going to become Muktzah. So he did, because he didn't make the Tanai probably from before Shabbos. L'chshani cheno. So what do you do in that case? Nosen enam b'miktzas. So you look at part of it and say, that'll be my Truma Tmeya, because now it's a touch because I don't make a Muktzah. You say, that'll be my Truma, but let's try and eat everything else and leave those for later on. Okay, Mitzvah Shem, tomorrow night we'll have to start promptly at 8 o'clock. It's more of a chiyuv on me than on you. So we can make this see him at about 9 o'clock tomorrow night.